In this lesson, I'm going to talk about layers. So on the right-hand side, you can see that we have our layers palette, and this is something that we're going to be using pretty much all the time when doing any type of design work. Now, I have this basic graphic design here in the center of our composition, and you can see that we have our background layer, and then we have a folder, and we have a little icon here that lets you know that you can open up this folder, and we have a few items within this in this design that we can then adjust, manipulate, and do whatever we need to do. Now you'll see that we have a few options up here, and I'll go through each of these and explain these, but basically this is what you want to know when using when using layers, is that in order to make a new layer, we'll come down here to this icon right down here at the bottom of our layer palette. Click on this icon. It's the one right between the trash can icon, and you can see a little folder icon, so it's right in between, and it's going to open up a new layer. Now, since I am in this folder, it's going to create this new layer within that folder. So I'm just going to pull this out, and it's just a basic empty layer. There's nothing in it, and it allows us to create on that layer. So for example, what I mean by that is if I go to, say, the brush tool, and I have this color selected, and let me add in a little bit, or make this brush a little bit larger, and then if I just click and paint, now I have something within this layer. I can move it around. I can use our selection tools to modify it in some way, but this is the basics of what we would need in order to create something on a layer. Now, this could be something like, say, you copy and paste it into this layer, but this is basically how you would either create something, or you would have a layer that you would bring in, such as a photo, a logo, a graphic that you would bring in into Photoshop. So if we want to delete this layer, what we can then do is just come down to this trash can, press click on that, and it'll delete that layer. Now you can see that I have a folder. Now if I add in a new layer, bring this out of the folder, what I can then do is create a folder, and this allows us to organize our layer palette a little bit better. So once that's created, then you can add something into the folder. So if I pull this in here, I go back to my brush tool, and I paint in here. Now I can move this folder around. I have auto select deselected. Now I can just move this around, and whatever else I have within that folder. So if I change my color to, say, maybe this orange here, and I come up to my brush tool, and maybe I use a bit of a smaller pen here. So now anytime I move this folder, oops, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I want to put this on a new layer. So sorry about that. And then what I can then do is draw within that layer, and now I can move this, all of this items, no matter how many you have within that folder. And then you can still maneuver around and move these objects around because they're on separate layers. Now we have a few different options down here, and I'm going to talk about masking and adjustment layers. So there's going to be situations where, say, maybe you want to adjust something within this layer. You want to manipulate this layer in some way. So that's what these adjustment filters are going to be used for. What you can then do is go to, say, solid color, and you can just paint within that layer. I'm going to undo. And then what you can then do is maybe you want to put in a gradient. You could do that, or you can undo, bring that out. So there's all these different types of things that you can add to it or adjust that particular layer. So in this case, maybe bring the contrast down or brightness down, increase the contrast. So just keep in mind, anytime you add in an adjustment layer, what that's going to do is that's going to affect everything that's underneath that layer. So if I double click on this, bring this brightness down, you can see it changes everything in this layer and everything below it. So keep that in mind. So if you want to say maybe just have this this graphic changed, you could just pull that underneath that layer. So keep that in mind. I'm just gonna press Command Z just to get back. And so that's what these adjustment layers are. They're all kinds of different kinds. You have pattern, brightness, levels. What that will do is that will allow you to, it's sort of like a contrast. You can punch up the darks, and using this layout here, you can adjust these handles that will allow you to adjust either the darks or or the shadows, or adjust the brightness. And you have all kinds of different kinds: hue saturation, color balance, photo filter, color lookup. You can invert. You can do all these different types of adjustment layers to adjust what's going on within your layers.